Welcome to Digital Ship webinar. We are presenting this second edition from the series Making Maritime Digitalization Easier with Workflows, sponsored by Orbit MI. Today's topic is making it easier to manage voyages with digital technology. And I'm very happy to introduce you to our 4 guest speakers. Please welcome Ali Riaz, CEO at Orbit MI, Bill Doby, CEO at Sedna, Eric Loy, CEO at Dataloy Systems, and his colleague Bernhard Hafting, Head of R&D, will be supporting in Q&A discussion. And now we are diving straight to the content with Carl Jeffrey, founding editor of Digital Ship.
So the topic today is voyage management. So if anybody doesn't know what that is, that means the commercial work at shipping companies after the contract has been made with the charterers. So there's so much involved with that. There's a lot of liaising with the charterers, meeting their demands, which might change at the last minute. Then you've got to decide which vessels go to which cargo. You've got to schedule the vessels. You've got to react to any last minute changes and everything. You've got to buy the bunkers and arrange the bunkers, buy the insurance, track what you're spending on fuel, monitor your finances, environmental reporting. So you can see there's a massive amount of communication with many different companies involved. And most companies are still doing this with email and telephone calls. Now, the reason they're still doing email and telephone calls is because doing it in software has been very, very hard. There have been lots of efforts to do this in one big integrated software package, and a lot of companies are doing that, but a lot of companies aren't doing that. And you can see as the communications are getting more and more complex, doing it with one big integrated software package gets harder. So we're bringing carbon discussions into a lot of these different discussions as another dimension now, for example. So what we're going to do today, so there's one dimension of the discussion, which is how to make voyage management easier with the help of digital technology. So we want to hide the complexity away. We want to give you the information you need to make better decisions. But there's another dimension to what we're showing today, which is a better way we can use digital technology to do this. So instead of having a large integrated software, we're talking about services from different companies. They're all on the cloud. You pay for them all by subscription. You're not tied into anyone. And they all integrate together, and you can set it up whichever way you want to. So we've got 3 10-minute talks today from 3 companies. They all work together, so they're going to illustrate how this can be done. So you don't need to use all 3 of them, but you might want to. So first of all, we've got Dataloy Systems in Bergen. They've got software tools for managing the core voyage management tasks around a fixture and the data and supporting people. So people get assigned to work on vessels and voyages, and it shows them the information they need. We've got Eric Fritz Loy, the CEO, and supported by Bernhard Hafting, head of R&D. Then we have Sedna, which has got tools to manage communications and data sharing. So instead of sending so many emails and documents, you only need to send what you need to send and read what you need, and you get warned about anything that might be important to you. And the talk is from Bill Doby, who's the founder and CEO. He's based in London. And finally, we're going to hear from Orbit, which acts as a kind of integration and optimization hub, supporting workflows for people so they can go get the data from the different systems, and it can do as much as it can to support your decision making, and you don't need to work with lots of software systems and keep logging onto them. It's going to bring the data together, but the data is still staying in the specialist systems that are designed to do specific tasks. So the talk is from Ali Riaz, the CEO who's based in Brooklyn. So I'd like to invite Eric from Dataloy to give the opening talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. I'm going to have a presentation that I will share on my screen, and thank you very much for inviting us to this webinar. I'm not going to use a lot of time to introduce Dataloy because I think you did that fairly well. So I'm going to jump straight into the topics of today, and I'm going to share my screen now. I hope you all can see it.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so we are Dataloy, and we are presenting today a very important topic for us that we have been having as our philosophy and strategy for a long time, and it's all about collaboration and cooperation, I guess. And I'm pleased to be here together with both Ali and Bill, whom we are cooperating very well with. I'd like to talk a bit about actually going a little bit back to talking about the challenge that we are facing and everybody is facing at the moment. Bring it back in time pre-pandemic times when everybody was busy working in the office like this, sitting tightly together, and you can just see the buzz of everybody working. And it's a typical picture from a shipping office, I guess, at least the way it used to be. And I'm sure, and I hope we will get back to that a bit later. This is how, you know, shipping companies work. It's a lot of things going on, a lot of phones, a lot of communication. Now, many years ago, we decided to extend our voyage management solution and make it a little bit more useful also for what you call fleet scheduling. So instead of talking only about voyage optimization, we wanted to look at the whole fleet. You know, we wanted to look at how can we help companies optimize the whole fleet. So we went out to some of the fleet scheduling departments with companies that we work with. And normally then you are visiting 2 or 3 people who have a department, and they do the scheduling. But when we started digging and asking them about their work and how they work and who they cooperate with, we ended up really with a picture that says a lot about the things that we're going to discuss today. So in the middle of this kind of drawing here, this was our analysis of everything that was going on. What it's really showing is the schedulers in the middle doing the fleet planning. And then you have all the circles around. These are all of the different departments and all of the different other roles in the company, and also external roles, people outside of the company that are either contributing to the schedulers and the work that they do, or depending on the output of the work that they do. And you can really see that there's a huge amount of complexity only in that task of making sure that the right vessel is doing the right thing. So there's a huge amount of complexity and a huge amount of collaboration going on between different departments. So actually what we found out was that when and this is a quote from that is kind of valid for our philosophy, is that when you're designing systems to cater for this kind of complexity, it's really a lot about the interaction between the users and the system, and not so much about the mathematics and the algorithms and things like that. We really learned that, and we're happy that we took that with us in our work. So based on these findings and this kind of really understanding what's actually important in order to get anywhere, and not only thinking about the software and the functions of that, we decided that we had to redefine the core of our software. So previously we thought that, okay, Dataloy is kind of everything you need. You have the voyage management system, but really we have to realize that we cannot do it all. We're going to have to, if we're going to deal with this kind of complexity, we're going to have to work together with other software companies, other startups, potentially also working with competitors even to make things work properly. So we kind of redefined and said that, yeah, we have a really good core software with good functionality for doing voyage management and fleet scheduling, but we need to build a layer around this core to make it possible to connect and to work with other software companies so that we can really put together something that the users can actually have as their total suite of tools. So it's all about differentiation and innovation on the core, but also about standardization and cloudification to make all of this happen. And that's what we have been doing. So following this, it was very natural for us, and this is a little bit technical, but we decided, and this is back in 2011, that we had to go with a really open API approach. Open API just means opening up and being very open to cooperating with anybody that wants to help our customers working together. So we defined that we have to do that, and then we started working on a completely new architecture to make sure that we would be ready when those requirements will be coming later on. So we defined the open API approach, and that's why today both Sedna and Orbit are what we call master partners of Dataloy, and we have plenty more of partners. I don't know how many we have now, but it's 10, 20 only in the last 3 to 6 months that we are collaborating with, and it's all being possible to do really quickly due to this approach, which has again been implemented in the actual APIs. So we're seeing it working in real life, which is very satisfactory both for us, for our partners, and also for the customers, of course. Another thing that we had to do, of course, in addition to this, you can not only have an API and things going on in the background, we also had to simplify and to make our own clients and our own software more simple and more visual and easy to use. That will also something that builds upon the fact that you have to communicate quickly and get quick access to the most important information. So we have actually completely redone our software, building on top of the Open API. We have now launching in June/July a completely browser web-based system for the whole voyage management part. And during that launch, we have been able to simplify and to focus on what's important to enable the users to be even more efficient. And then also, again, redefining the core, what is that really we do, and what is it that we can do together with other companies. Another screenshot just showing how we are building dashboards to deal with the fleet scheduling. So we now can have users having a complete overview of their fleet, all of their cargoes, dragging and dropping around. So really making it a lot easier to work with. And by doing that, also making it a lot easier to communicate both between the system and the user, and between systems and between users. In addition to that, we also have to enable the collaboration. And Bill Doby and Ali is going to say a lot more about that later. We have done some just very simple steps in our application to enable very easy collaboration. So what you're looking at here is a screenshot from the application. We're looking at a bunker order. This bunker order is cancelled. That means that it has a status cancelled, and you can see that there has been some communication happening around this order. So, and Bill is going to say a lot more about that, I think, also, but this is about context. You have to put the communication together with the context, together with the objects that you're actually working on. If you take the communication completely out of the system, or if you don't connect the communication systems like Sadna correctly into our system, the communication will lack a lot of context that is very useful when you're working in a fast-paced environment. So this is just showing that you can communicate around any object in our system. In this case, with an example of a bunker order, where I am mentioning, or somebody's mentioning me, saying that, hi, Eric, we have to cancel this order, so and so, please inform another person about that, and maybe even inform the bunker supplier. And then everybody will then be able to communicate on this particular topic, and it will be stored here, let's say forever, basically, right? So what happens when you do this is that I will have a notification. I can have it on email, which is, of course, maybe not the best thing as we are talking about getting rid of emails, but yeah, it's still an important communication platform. But on top of that, I'm also getting notified directly inside of the system and also on my mobile phone that somebody has mentioned somebody. And then I can click directly more details, and it will bring me directly to this bunker order where I can see all the communication. And then I can reply, and somebody else will see the reply and go directly to the core of where the communication, where you have all the context of what you're communicating around. So I believe this is going to be really big. And I think that one of the reasons Sadna has been so successful is that Bill and his team really understands this. This is my impression at least. So you have to be able to collaborate, but you also have to be able to collaborate around everything, more or less, that you are working with in terms of voyage management, and you have to be able to do it anytime. That's why we also made our system completely mobile friendly. It means that everything that you can do on a desktop in the office, you can actually also do it on the mobile phone. And of course, we cannot expect people only to communicate when they are in the office. You have to be able to communicate also when you're on the go. So the system also comes with a complete mobile friendly solution. then I want to, before I hand over to Bill, I want to go back to that original screenshot that I showed you of our, initial take on what's actually going on around scheduling of a vessel, and say that our simple communications and our simple software will not be able to deal with all of this complexity unless we also cooperate with other systems like Sedna, and we integrate that tightly in such a way that we can deal not only with internal communications, but eventually also be able to communicate across the borders of our own company and communicate with agents, with charterers, potentially with other ship owners, and of course also with brokers. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Bill, and see if I can stop my presentation. Oh yeah, you did for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. It's super exciting to see the how the software has evolved. I think we were recalling we've been working together with different clients since 2002 on different projects, and the evolution to see the latest version is just fantastic. I'm also super interested in the context and communication pieces, because obviously that's a huge part of what we're trying to solve for at Sedna in terms of attaching the context that email contains actually back into expert systems like Dataloy, which is actually the place we also agree where it belongs. And I can show a little bit about how we can enable that. I'll give a sort of 3 or 4 minute summary of what Sedna is and the thesis behind it, and then I'll show a very short demo. Let me just share my screen here. Excuse me just for a sec. And if you could all you're able to see a purple slide there. Really simply, and I think Eric was touching on this, Ali will touch on it as well. Nobody wants more email or more messaging or more chat. Ultimately, they need to communicate in order to get work done. And our long-term goal is to deliver a more intelligent stream to them in their communications, such that they can act and respond to work faster. And we, it may sound funny for someone who runs what is ostensibly an email company to wave a flag that email's broken and kind of chat's a mess. But what the challenge that we see in the industry, and we see across the shipping and the logistics space, is that in the fairly common rhythm of most business, selling something, papering it over, executing it, and then getting paid for it, there's a fairly small set of information that needs to be relayed in relative real time, some discussion in some context. But the set of tools that companies are given in order to do this, email, and then email's not big enough and it's unsafe, and I got to move it to a content management system, I have to connect it to Dataloy, got to connect it to SAP, maybe I save it on my desktop, I self-organize it, someone throws chat in there because talking with people is nice, but the chat is totally unstructured. And what the companies end up with is this real cloud of noise sitting on top of them. And the very act of going to find, I think your example, Eric, is so good, going to find that email outside of Dataloy, before you implement that feature of why this bunker order was canceled. And by the way, why the invoice shouldn't be paid, very important piece of context, that disrupts companies enormously as they try to settle in on that truth very quickly. And so Sedna is really designed to solve for that problem by kind of taking the core, elements of a business transaction which flow across email, the selling, execution, getting paid, and reimagining it. And more importantly, connecting it to the systems that kind of drive a company and allowing kind of simple collaboration around that. And, Eric, I think we're, two of the customers we can talk about, like Golden Ocean, G2 Ocean, we've long been integrated there. There's other customers that we work with. With Ali, we're doing some great collaborations. Like, it's really about an attitude of openness, very much like in shipping itself. There are very few ship owners who own the ship, build the ship, charter the ship, crew the ship, fuel the ship. The industry itself is a diffuse, a collaborative party, almost with kind of human-based APIs. And we're really living, I think, the software embodiment of that, of trying to build open, connected systems that save users time. We do this in 4 really simple ways, and I won't dive into it much beyond this. We make the email smart. we make it smart by, first of all, getting rid of all the duplicates. So there's only one original copy of that email, which can then be accessed and shared rights can be given to it. We allow that email to be organized by Dataloy or by Orbit. So comes in, hey, what voyage, what port call, what agent, what bunker call, what bunker order is this related to? And that can automatically be organized, tagged, and then routed to the correct operator. You can build simple workflows, so you can interact back into Dataloy if you wanted to, or pull up the vessel performance and visualization of where it's been from Orbit, for example. It's collaborative. Our collaboration, you can have a simple discussion on the email. Eric, I'd love to talk to you about the new APIs for that. We'd love to push that directly back into Dataloy itself. And then instant, some of you may use Sedna, you know that, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million messages, 1 billion attachments, the system is still under 1 second response times. And that's really at the core of how we work on this. I'm going to show the software really quickly, which I think gives a slightly better context. So what you're looking at here is, me, user Bill Doby. I'm in an operations team, and I'm seeing a sort of in the last 24 hours, there's about 800 emails that have been streamed to this particular operations team. The Schwal High, the Clara Catherine, the Recover 12, all of those different voyages that Dataloy is telling us about. And so when we look at and what's important, by the way, so when I look at this, I'll answer the questions after if I can come back to that. When I look at this particular message, what's happening is that Dataloy is telling us that it's related to the Tai Hang 11. How does Dataloy do that? Well, we use their API to extract information about the voyage, and then we use a decision tree algorithm to automatically organize the message against this voyage. In so doing, we also allocate the voyage to the correct person. So you can see in each case here, there's an individual who might be responsible for the voyage, Ray Stans, Peter Venkman. In this case, there might be, it might be, there's no one responding to it yet, so there's no match in that case. Or in this example, you might see again to Peter Venkman. So if I wanted to see which voyages are relevant to me, in the last 24 hours in my inbox, I can go like this and see that, and I kind of see, well, there's only 18. That's a much more manageable list for me to deal with. Now what I can do is I can then take a look at this, let's go back to the Schwal High, for example, and perhaps this is related to bunkers. So because I'm already connected to Dataloy, I can kind of come in here, maybe drop a bunker tag on it, and then I can have a discussion, and I could say, Eric, we could say to a particular user like Charles Brown, or you could even, put /Dataloy in there, and that would trigger a reaction back. And you could say, this is canceled for this reason. And what's happening is obviously that context gets stored here, but we can route this directly back to the Schwal High, to this particular asset in this particular voyage. You may even want to share this message with the accounts team, so they know not to pay this bunker order, and they understand the context and the reasoning behind it. You may want to drive in and see, well, wait a minute, I need to see every message ever for the Schwal High. Well, that ship's been busy. Almost 17,000 messages come up there. This particular search, in fact, anything you do inside the system, this could also be launched from Dataloy or Orbit themselves. They can put little buttons in there with an email icon next to this, and it would pull back all the in and out messages associated with the Schwal High, maybe all the messages associated, that have an attachment, so to speak. Then you see there's 5,000 of them, and you could drill down in all kinds of different ways, and you can build all kinds of different filters, first of all, to find that if you wanted to, additional bookmarks. You can even traverse different teams, add the accounts team, maybe add a projects team, add an individual team, and you can have this kind of high level 30,000 foot or zeroed in view against it. Now, the last part, and then I'll stop and hand over to Ali, is we can also, if Dataloy wants, or one of Dataloy's clients, one of the amazing things about working with Dataloy is, and I mean this in a nice way, we don't actually need their help, and the clients don't need their help to actually build against their system. And that's really nice and an open attitude to have. And so in this case, if a client wanted to go in and build, pull back the schedule, for example, from the ship and show me the itinerary, well, they can spend using our toolkit just a couple of hours, build a simple application, go in, get that information, maybe add a remark right back into the system, as Eric talked about, or execute certain actions against this. And all of this can be done in a very lightweight, low-code way. But more importantly, we're already inheriting the context of what voyage and what asset this is related to. This works in similar ways too. When you're responding to messages, you can drop into here, and you could pull in, standard bunker orders. You could bring in, a cancellation order if you wanted to drop into one of the applications, bring documents from SharePoint or throughout the system. And all the while, this is all being governed and directed by an expert system like Dataloy, or perhaps, Orbit itself, then maybe can give us a visualization of the route of this ship and how it's performing from a fuel efficiency point of view. So that's a very quick overview of it. I believe I answer questions at the end. Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah, you haven't used your full 10 minutes if you want to make a 1-minute answer to that one, but he's asking, why doesn't your system tell you if an email has been sent or not?
Why doesn't Sedna give receiving data from sent emails? It's getting information when the email received by a receiver, how many times it has been opened, if it has been forwarded and such. So that information, certainly within your company, we provide that. And, so like who's seen it, who's touched it, who's interacted with it. When you send information to another party and that type of tracking information is being fed back to you, that's usually with a tracking pixel. And these tracking pixels are hidden images embedded, intended to actually kind of spy almost on the behavior of how the counterparty uses the email. We have some philosophical concerns about that. And so we don't employ that technology yet. Although, if it was a business requirement that there's a way for someone to know if the message has been opened, we certainly would be willing to dive into that. More technically, when two Sednas communicate with each other, we do actually verify the message, encrypt it, and authenticate it on both sides, and then you can be sure that it was actually delivered. So when one of our Sedna customers is talking to Glencore, that message uses a feature we call verified by Sedna. I'm not sure I'm answering your question fully. Happy to dig in on it direct. Thanks.
Oh, that's great. So we'll pass over to Ali Riaz, CEO of Orbit in Brooklyn.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. I'm going to load up my slide. And
yep.
Here we go. Everybody can see?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining our call today. It is truly a pleasure to work with Dataloy and Sedna. And I was, our team has been extremely impressed by Dataloy and Sedna. And, the word API was mentioned. And just to say what API is, it's an application programming interface, which is essentially a software capability that allows two applications or two and more applications to speak with each other. And so you can imagine that an API, if it's done with the full intention of collaborating and openness, it will be very powerful, will be bidirectional. And you can imagine that if it's just kind of like an afterthought, that it's not very much worth it. So I remember my team coming to me and telling me that Dataloy has the best APIs in the world. So we had a little bit API envy, and but that allows us to work with Dataloy and Sedna in a beautiful way. And it's been a pleasure to work with Sedna as well, because it's not just about solving an email problem. It's actually turning communication to a strategic asset. It's not enough to just kind of tag more and filter more. It's actually very important and very courageous to think about what does the world need. Just because we're used to a one way of communication, which obviously we're exhausted by, and it's not working for us. Sedna has taken the big responsibility of providing a different way to contextually communicate and collaborate. So it's with great pleasure that I am joining joining up with these companies. So talking a little bit about Orbit. If you think about Orbit, Orbit actually is a independent software company. We're a SaaS company. We are we were developed actually inside Stena, the Swedish shipping company, because Stena was facing a lot of the challenges of point solutions. And so if you imagine what Stena was experiencing was that, and Eric mentioned that they have partnerships with 20 companies. There's about maybe 200 more companies that he could collaborate with, but there's a lot of different little pieces of technologies. And the problem was that each department had lots of different tools and lots of different applications. And it all ended up with a cut and paste into the spreadsheet. And then this department is working on something that they think is still active while the other department has shut down the account. So the flow of workflows between the departments were not working. So the idea behind Orbit was to create a platform all in the cloud, no hardware requirement, easy to onboard vessel, easy to onboard a user, but give the users the user interface and workflow that is right for their job. And so while Orbit in itself is an integration objective, and Orbit was designed to deliver several solutions like market intelligence, compliance, to regulatory, Sentry, which is our vessel connectivity and notification, chartering, and the Orbit overall, I call it the minority report dashboards, but it's essentially your dashboard that you can have in your control room, and you can see exactly what vessel needs attention for what reason. And we also have specific applications that we're particularly proud of, again, around the idea of collaboration. Our AI routing works extremely well on its own, but you can also layer in weather routing, and then you have, the holy grail. In terms of Orbit Reporter, that's our vessel connectivity product. And it's a very elastic product, again, so that we can work with sensor data companies and other type of companies, safety, security type of companies, so we can actually include that in the Noon reports as we go forward. So that was the first main step, was to think about, reducing the number of logins and logouts, reducing the need to go to spreadsheets, but actually, bring the information from a VMS and bring the information from communication tools and weather and so on, and join them in such a way that it actually lifts the bar for all the different systems and data in it. And as part of that, it's our complete dedication to an open system and integration with anybody that the end customer wants to integrate with. So the why we exist and what we are very much the same thing. So we talked a little bit about the ability to collaborate and ability to communicate across, but a little bit history. Why are there silos? And the silos are because in everything, in evolution of software, right? You start building a CRM, which is customer relationship management, or ERP, which is an enterprise resource planning tool. And you build those tools so they could do those features, so you can get those benefits. And over time, you build more and more features, and you build security around it. You build a lot of different, specific capabilities for that tool. While that's great for that particular process, you're building thicker and taller walls around that particular capability and that data that inside that particular application. So with the companies like Dataloy, Sedna, Orbit, we're really saying, you know what, it's not about us. It's about you. It's about how you work. How about not focusing on our silo, but actually focusing on your workflows. So again, why workflows? Why communicate faster? Why collaborate faster? Because everything we done in computer science from the beginning was about speed. It's no point of knowing the results or get a piece of information you know 3 days after the ship has sailed. It has no value. But if you can find out the right information and you can take action on it, and you can impact your CO2 emissions, you can impact which bunker you will go to, you can impact what ETA you should have where, then you are actually using data to make decisions. The problem that we're all trying to solve is that while this data lives in silos, lives in different systems, and there are plenty of companies that are resisting it. They want to be the one-stop shop for everything. But if you look at other industries like life sciences or financial services, you see that the companies that really served their clients well and were rewarded for it were companies that focused on the client success and not our own silo. So maritime industry is there now. The volatility, the workforce transformation, how people work today versus 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, is changing. And all these and regulatory requirements, and regulatory requirements are what really broke the silos in the financial services sector. Dodd-Frank said, this is a form you have to fill, and the companies have to fill that form. And that form came from, had information requirements that came from different departments. So in order to comply with the regulators, you had to break the silos finally, right? So it's a lot of change management involved, a lot of leadership mentality, a lot of mindset before skill set. So I'm not downplaying that, but if the technologies don't allow you to focus on the workflows, you're back to the silos. You're back to finding valuable information, perhaps too late. And and as we know, everything about computer science about speed, and the workflows really helps you understand uh, that not to pay that invoice before it's paid, right? Because after you paid it, you have to go spend a lot of time getting the money back. Um, uh, what does Orbit do? We do three things. We aggregate information from lots of different areas. We get them from the vessel. We get them from third-party providers. We actually do a lot of uh, uh, amplification as a result of our machine learning framework. But ultimately, you can aggregate, you can amplify, but if you don't help the end user use it in their daily life, you're not really activating it. So we're very proud that with our Stena experts that actually built these workflows initially, that they had such deep knowledge of how they work. So instead of having people say, oh, now you're going to have to work this way because that's how we built the software is actually designed with empathy for the end user. And we serve the different users. But the good news is that when these different users go to the staff meeting, they all have the same numbers. Imagine that, not having to fight half the meeting about whose numbers are correct, but you can actually work on solving problems, addressing opportunities, creating more customer intimacy. And that's really what it's about. It's a lot of people think digital transformation about cost cutting. Digital transformation is first and foremost about creating space, creating room in everybody's days to do more personal development, to spend more time on the right tasks, to actually serve your customers and partners better. Because if we don't have these tools and we are living in silos, we spend most of our day chasing what is the truth, what is the real information. And you can imagine quality of life, and the younger generation definitely are very much focused on quality of life and balance and things like that. And so if they're not, if we're not creating systems that actually allows them to grow and create and solve and meet opportunities, we're actually having them spend on everything else just to survive the day. So it's a very different attitude of what kind of culture our organization should have. And we believe that, low value processes should be minimized and high value processes should be optimized. But if I can share one very busy slide with you, apology for that, but we're going to share this with you also. You can use this as a checklist. It's very important to share this message that the world has changed. Companies like Dataloy, companies like Sedna, Orbit, others are actually focusing on workflows, are focusing on making things easier for you. But a lot of people in the industry maybe remember the project they had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 years ago, where it was not a positive experience, right? And on the left-hand side, you see how things were before. And on the right-hand side, you see actually how things are. So I encourage everybody who's listening to give their data dreams another try, because some of those challenges that existed in the past were actually, we can call them Pavlovian, right? Those actually don't exist anymore. So you have things like upfront payment. Like, for example, let's use Orbit as an example. We deliver hundreds and thousands of dollars of value per vessel per year in net profit. We reduce emissions of 61,000 ton per 100 vessels. And we do that for $13 per ship day. And we don't charge anything upfront, and everything's in the cloud. You don't have to buy anything else. You can use your cell phone, you can use your desktop, and you can really leapfrog from where things were to go forward. And if there was a time to take a new look at how to become data driven, how to use digital transformation as a game changer, both in terms of increasing your revenue, but also reducing your costs and inefficiencies like regulatory and compliance reporting, then take another look. Because the companies like us, we are working very hard on making your life easier so you can get straight to the ROI and not be tangled up in years of development and configurations. And that was my key message. So give it another try.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Ali. That's fantastic. So now we're going to the Q&A part of the session. So there's a couple of questions already there about integration. We're getting quite technical. I thought maybe as a general question, I think Ali has already answered this beautifully, but about the big picture benefits. So Ali was saying about this just makes working life so much better, and that's something we don't treat as importantly as we could. But there's many other answers to this question, like better efficiency and lower carbon. And I don't know if Bill and Eric, would you like to take a minute each? This is Bernhard coming into the frame now from Dataloy. Would you like to take a minute each to answer what do you see as a big picture benefits before we get into the deep technical stuff? And anybody else wants to enter any questions as we're ready for that? Bill first, maybe.
Sure. I mean, I think that we can package it up in a lot of different ways, but the collection of systems and the way that the industry is mostly forced to communicate just wastes an enormous amount of time. And the idea that you could potentially, even give back, 30 minutes or an hour a day to someone, either in filing, in certainty, to Ali's point, in being able to plan correctly in Dataloy's case. I mean, I think this is, it's extremely easy to quantify the return from that, not only from a financial point of view, but much more importantly, just the opportunity to kind of improve performance overall. And I must say, I'm a little bit away from the market. I'm an ex-charter and shipbroker from about 20 years ago, so I don't follow the gyrations day to day, but it's never been an easy market, never been an easy, even in the good times, and the bad times come soon enough. So making money, being able to move quickly when you can, be sure about the actions. I think we as service providers to that market have an obligation to give simpler, faster, more affordable systems with more measurable ROI. And hopefully that's what we we return. It's hard for people though, and I think Ali's right to touch on the change management and the fear, because people mostly have taught themselves in this industry to how to be successful, and those habits are part of why they think they're good at their job. It's not true, by the way. They're good at their job because they're good at their job, not how they file email or yeah. So giving back time, that's what I'd like to do, and we all learned the value of that, I think, in lockdown.
Oh, Eric and Bernhard, do you want to give a very short answer to the question of the bigger picture benefits, or anything you've got to add to what you've heard?
And I think Bill wrapped it up quite nicely. There's a thing that we are trying to challenge a little bit, and that we will be challenging more and more. And this is coming from some of our staff as well that joined us recently that are not really used to working with shipping companies. They're quite surprised of how little you actually measure these things, right? Because everybody understands that these things are valuable, right? But when you go in to shipping companies, asks them, how good are you at different things? How much time are you saving? You don't get answers, or you get very, very fuzzy answers. I think it's also worthwhile to start measuring a little bit, because then we can also get to know what are the next steps and where should we focus to get even more benefits, right? So we need to start doing that a little bit as well, and we have some initiatives going on there as well. Yeah.
Okay, so if we go to the Q&A, so I mean, I can summarize. So Paul Rovdal, I think, is from Evergas. So he's basically saying if we put comments in Dataloy system, it's just another system we're putting data into, and we've got to gather it all together. When we make an insurance claim, it makes it even harder. And if you've got comments and emails, there's even more complexity doing an insurance claim. Nikolaos Rasius from Ulysses is asking Dataloy, if you've integrated with 20 people, is your API so wonderful that you just put up the API and it all works, or do you have a lot of work to do with integrating? And I think the bigger picture is, I guess this stuff is incredibly hard, but it's still worth doing. So we maybe, I don't know if we want to take a couple of minutes just to talk generally on the theme of integration and answer the questions. Should we go back to Ali first, do you think? Is it?
Well, I think that you have to understand why different systems exist, right? I mean, when early on, BI tools came about, a lot of these SAPs, they were like, well, you can get a report out of SAP. And BI tools is a lot more about what Eric was talking about, like measuring and understanding what to measure. But if you have to move the data from SAP into the BI tool, then what happens is that latency. So the data is getting updated in the planning tool, but then an analysis tool is actually looking at different data altogether. And so the ability to actually keep data where it is, because it's there for a reason, right? When you're doing the person that's working with the fuel management is an expert in fuel management. That's what they do, right? And they need those features and functionality to do their job. And that's very different from a claims person. But there is a continuity there about that particular project that touches fuel management, that touches claims, that touches post-fixture and all these things. So the ability to actually leave information there, but creating workflows on top, that's how you actually get efficiency. So it's not really creating yet another system. It's actually leaving those systems that are expert systems where they are. I'm sure you can collapse a few of them, but we have seen, I've had clients that have 32 systems, 5 routing systems, right, and so on and so on, and they do it because these systems don't really speak with each other. Therefore, that particular expert have to have his or her particular expert system, and there is a change in technology and there's a change in attitude. And that creates a new opportunity for the end users to say, okay, our current investments don't have to be lost. Our data doesn't have to go away. And VMS is not just another system we have to feed the data. We feed the data one place, but we eat it anywhere we want. And I think that's very important to get a hold of and run with, because the sooner you do that, the sooner you get data to work for you instead of bury you.
Oh, Eric and Bernhard, do you want to talk about how you manage the complexity of your systems and maybe cover some of these questions while you're...
Yeah, just a short comment to what Ali said, and Paul, hello, how are you? I think that Paul is right in asking these questions because shipping has been in this troubled things for too long. It's too much communication that is waste of time and so forth. But the whole point is that what we are doing now, and the fact that we are collaborating so well, we are opening up for the customer. We're not sitting on each of our own part trying to make the most of our own things. We're actually putting the customer in focus. Then these are just possibilities, but there is a huge amount of new possibilities. Just by seeing what you showed today, Bill, and I know that showing you what we have, me and you suddenly have like 10,000 new ideas, right?
Yeah.
But we have to make sure that all these possibilities are not causing more complexity and more problems for the customers, but that we are actually going always in the right direction. And we need to talk to people like Paul, of course, to understand that we don't go backwards, that we always use this because there's so many possibilities to simplify things. But we could also go in the wrong direction and suddenly just make things more complex, right? So that's a comment to that. And then the question from Nikolaus, very, very interesting, very good question. I don't know even where to start, but we created our strategy for open API platform in 2011, and we spent like 8 years on making sure it was done to more or less to perfection. Yeah. That means that an API is not an API, it's not an API, right? So what we have done is that we have now put together a partner program, which means that any startup, any customer, any third-party consultancy company, anybody that wants to do something for their customer or for our common customers that requires data from our system, or where they want to feed something into our system, can do that very easily. And we do have some case studies and some examples of this. Sedna is one of them, of course, but there are others as well, where the speed of how you can actually do this is very different from what it used to be some years ago, where this would be a huge project. So to answer more specifically, all of the partners get their own hosted environment. They get a complete copy of our product, just as the customers would be. They have access to our support portal, where they can get direct contact with our developers if they need to. We get a really good documentation, and we are there to help. We want them to integrate, with our tools. So there is one single API, but very importantly, we can restrict what Sedna gets access to. Our customers can decide that we can cut and slice the API in such a way that Sedna shouldn't necessarily have access to everything, right? A bunker tool should not necessarily have access to the freight invoices because it's completely irrelevant, right? So there's one API, but there's a possibility of tailor-making it and making sure that the customers feel comfortable, because we are opening up. That can also be a bit scary, right? So we have to keep track of the security and so forth. But Nikolaus, if you reach out directly to us, we can of course explain much more about how we did this. Yeah, thanks for the question.
I mean, Carl, if I can jump in, as someone who's built against the Dataloy API on and off for over 10 years now, I can say their support of it is first class. And in fact, that there are lots of vendors heading in this direction in the industry. Almost all of them, we require a high level of interaction in order to build something against it meaningful. With Dataloy, the API is so well thought out, so well documented, and consistent, frankly, that we can do it, and also other third-party developers can do it, that you may hire to kind of connect your own systems. I think they're actually setting a standard for this in the business. And Poul, just on this point around claims and capturing all the content in order to be legally compliant, this is a big part of our business. Our largest customer base is in the commodity side, on the charter side, unfortunately an area that has to deal with claims a lot. And we have both programmatic ways to export the messages and the comments for compliance. And ultimately, once these new tools like Dataloy, their collaboration comes on board, we can also bring them in, or ultimately you could sign up for Orbit, and Orbit's APIs could ask both systems, give me a consolidated view of all the messages and comments associated with it, and that could be turned over to legal. So it's all about kind of good governance around the data and being open on the API. But we're definitely aware of that concern about the dispersion of where the truth is inside the company. And that's why Sedna's approach to this has been to go back to the ugliest part of the problem, which is email volume itself. So you kind of solve that 80% problem, and then all of us can much more easily collaborate on the 20% that's left.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll just add something to that quickly. You know, one of the things that our customers suffer from is that there's 4 ETAs for every vessel, every voyage, right? There's this, you just have to be forced to spreadsheets and phone calls and faxes and all that stuff. And essentially our goal is to distill that to use, and because our background is machine learning or artificial intelligence, you know, our approach is to take all that data from all these different systems and say, you know, out of these 4 ETAs, this is probably the right one. Out of these 10 vessels that at this port that you think you compete with, actually, because of the tank type, these are the 2 that you compete with. And imagine having the right ETA. Imagine knowing, you know, which what is your competitive situation at any port. That is where people actually can make what we call actionable insights, right? They get actionable insights to make an action. And that's what it's all about. You know, we don't read this data just because it's fun, you know, that we're reading a yellow pages, or, you know, but we look for information so we can action on it. And ability to drill down, inferring and doing correlation between different data sets that allows you to actually percolate up the best answer, most probable answer. That is speed to action, and that's our main mission at Orbit, working with wonderful companies like Dataloy and Sedna.
Well, we've
I think
got
interesting.
4 minutes left. Should we get into the wrap up? I mean, I thought if we give everybody 1 minute each, there's a message you'd like to leave people with, plus whatever you're about to say. But I think the important message I think is that voyage management is so difficult. This is the only possible way to do it. That's what came across to me. But should we take 1 minute, starting with Eric and Bernard, and then Bill, and then Ali? And then Ali, I'd like you to explain your Pavlovian dove, because I looked it up on Wikipedia. I can't quite work out how that lines. Maybe back to Eric and Bernard.
Bernard, you had a short comment?
No, I just had a comment about making the integration has historically been very difficult and very time consuming and costly. And with all these new API possibilities, with using standard technology, you can pull a developer off the street and make him integrating these 2 fairly advanced systems together in maybe 1 day, just reading the documentation. And that's also an enabler in this context. So that's also something that we need to focus on going forward.
Okay, short wrap up from my side. What I thinking about after this webinar is that we're just scratching the surface so far. Actually, I don't know if you, Bill and Ali, agree that there's so much more we can do. And now that we are on each of our sides coming up with new solutions, and at the same time collaborating and putting the customer in focus, if we can keep doing that, that's going to be a challenge, because as the amount of integrations work and the partnerships, you know, there's always some ripples and some waves ahead. But if we can keep doing that, then I think that the industry is going to have a lot of use of what we are doing together. Yeah.
Oh, very good. So, Bill, this question from Jan Pauly is for you. He's business applications, business intelligence, and digitalization at BBC Chartering in Germany. Do you want to, in your 1 minute final word, do you want to?
So the plugin integration plan, embedding custom tools in Sedna or Dataloy, that question.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm always hesitant to answer a question when I'm not sure I fully understand it, but please reach out to me. But I think what you're saying, you know, if you go to developers.sedna.com, there's a GitHub link where the assets exist for you to actually build applications right inside the Sedna stream itself. And we're building that out extensively. So one example could be, and I don't want to speak product strategy for OrbitMI or Dataloy, instead of Dataloy or OrbitMI sending an email with that update, they can actually post live content into the message stream that an operator might be using with their brand, with their real-time information authenticated correctly. So absolutely, we want those custom tools to be built, and I'd love to dive in on you with that. And one small wrap-up statement. What I really like about this discussion, I've been working, hard to admit, in this problem for about 20 years, not Sedna, but in shipping and trying to improve performance. And we've all exhausted by KPIs and other tools. There are very few levers that a shipping company can pull to improve commercial performance in real time. And so getting to context certainty faster is actually at the very heart of trying to make these companies more profitable. And I'm really pleased with this group and the discussion, and really like working with them all. So excited about it. Thanks.
Oh, fantastic, Ali. So I think by the Pavlovian dog, you mean the person drives the software rather than the software driving the person. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean that we sometimes think that we have a barrier.
Yes.
And that barrier actually doesn't exist. And I don't want to get into Carl Jung right now, but the idea is that we should ask ourselves what reality is, which brings us to Buddha, see reality for what it is. And reality today is that technology actually is here to help you. And so my closing thoughts are following. You know, I tell all my customers and prospects and the market at large, you know, dream again. You know, think about how data can actually help you serve your customers better and help you collaborate inside the company with your partners and customers. So get your dream on data back. 2, demand from us that we will play with each other, that will put you in focus, that will help you with point number 3, which is deliver, right? Not just deliver software, but deliver results. Show me, measure in a measured way, show me that I'm actually making more money, being more efficient, reducing more CO2 emissions. So, you know, dream, demand, and deliver. And this is a great time to do it, more than ever, because regulatory pressure on one side, but also working remotely. You know, you saw the dedication that Dataloy has on mobile communication. In the past, you know, desktop had a lot of features, but the mobile didn't. We share that passion with Dataloy and Sedna, that 95% of everything we have on the desktop is actually available on the mobile. So dream, demand, and deliver, focus on delivering results. And you will be surprised how quickly you can get on top of this data tsunami.
Oh, thank you very much. That was a fantastic discussion, Vida.
Thank you, Carl. So you've heard 3 companies, Sedna, Dataloy, and OrbitMI, how they work together to provide easier voyage management with digital technology. And we'll host the final webinar on maritime workflows on September 16th. Keep an eye for updates on our website and the LinkedIn page. And now Digital Ship is signing off until next Tuesday, where we will dive into cyber issues. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated.